Your station, 101 FM, with Saturday SportzScene.
Good morning and welcome to SportzScene for another week, taking you through all the latest and greatest news in the world of sports, all the way from the locals up to the international. My name's Kevin Braysher. I'm the host of the show, as always. Joining me on the panel, AFL Queensland Hall of Famer, Mr. Craig Crowley. Welcome to the show again, Craig.
G'day, Kev, and happy Easter to all our listeners.
Happy Easter indeed, and it was a great Friday yesterday in terms of sport watching, because there was plenty of good action, especially in the world of football. Ethan James joins us at the desk to discuss it all. Ethan, how about yesterday's football?
Yeah, morning, Kev. Melbourne, they got the chocolate there against the Broncos. Sensational match up there at Suncorp.
It was an unbelievable fight back from the Broncos. I'm telling you, 10 minutes out, I thought it was all over, but the Broncos showed plenty of heart last night, even though they went down eventually. Also joining us, the founder of SportzScene, Mr. Darren Madigan. Darren, welcome to the show. Maybe not. We'll get him. We'll try a little harder. We've lost the connection there with Darren, but we'll get him up after the first break anyway. But we'll jump right into it. There's a load of results to go through after yesterday and the days before. But starting off, NRL Round 4, that game we were just touching on, Ethan. Melbourne Storm 32 over the Broncos 26 at Suncorp Stadium. 40,071 people packed in. They saw a hat-trick to Billy Slater, hat-trick to Josh Hoffman. But Melbourne Storm racing out to a 14-0 lead to start that game. And then the Broncos really fought back well in the second half, didn't they? It was a really exciting game of football to watch.
Yeah, sensational game, Kev. As you were saying before, the Bronx, they looked gone after about 15 minutes. They had 3 tries put on them, and sort of thinking Melbourne, it could be a cricket score here for them, but they fought back well in the second half, and I think that's definitely the best footy that they've played all year for Brisbane. Just a shame that they had Melbourne on the other side, I suppose.
And they gave up that early start, but I think particularly that second half performance, I thought Sam Thaiday was outstanding. I think Corey Norman probably had his best game of the season as well, so plenty of positives to take out of it for the Brisbane Broncos, even though they went down to the Storm, who just roll on. That's their 4th win of the season already. Another side who's undefeated so far this year, South Sydney Bunnies, 17 over the Bulldogs, 12 at ANZ Stadium in front of 51,686. Massive crowds yesterday for the Good Friday matches. It was the return of Ben Barber, but the real story out of this one, and we'll talk about this after the first break a little bit more, is Kristen Inu placed on report for a spear tackle on Greg Inglis. What did you think of it? How many weeks is he going to get?
It was
judge and jury.
He's going to get execution here. Yeah, it was an ugly one. The tackle was pretty much over, and he picked him up by one leg, and he landed sort of on the top of his head. So we'll let the powers to be decide there, but I'm fairly sure he'll be out for sort of a lengthy period, Kristen Inu. Yeah,
he looks to be in plenty of trouble, Kristen Inu, after that tackle. On Thursday night, we've had another game already. 3 games already in the NRL 4th round. It was Manly 26-0 over the West Tigers. Dominant display from Manly, but the big talking point out of that, which we won't touch on now, but we'll get on into it after the second break when we talk all rugby league, but obstruction. It's been a big controversy with a bit of a tweak to the rule of obstruction and how the referees are going to see it this year. It's caused plenty of controversy, and we'll talk about it after the first break. In the AFL first round, Craig, it got underway last week, but the traditional opener, quote-unquote, Richmond got up 106 to 101 over Carlton at the MCG. What did you think of it?
I thought it was a terrific game. Obviously, they're still ironing out a little bit of problems, as they do in any sort of first game, but I think all you need especially for the game itself, is to have something nice and close. Great to see Richmond. They promised so much at the start of the season through all the pre-season, and they come to the fore. But nearly lost it. They had had a pretty unassailable sort of lead, and nearly probably choked it at the end of it for Carlton. But Malthouse coached extremely well, released the tags, and they nearly got there.
They did. Well, like you say, they had a big lead, Richmond, but eventually they ended up holding on in the end. Looking at the rest of the sporting world, the A-League, round 27, the final round of the A-League, the Western Sydney Wanderers last night completed the fairy tale, so to speak. 3-0 win over the Newcastle Jets to claim the Premier's Plate in their very first season in front of 22,000 at Hunter Stadium. The vast majority of them seem to be Wanderers fan too. A lot of them travelled up to that game, and it's just wonderful scenes and a wonderful story as we lead into the final series there. But At the moment, Western Sydney Wanderers, the toast of the A-League. On Thursday night, the Brisbane Roar got their place sealed for the semi-finals. A 3-1 win over Sydney FC at Suncorp. Tremendous stuff from the Roar. As we've been saying all year, they've got the firepower. If they make it to this stage in the season, they're going to be trouble for everybody. And we will have a good look at the A-League situation a little later in the show. In the first hour, 8:45 is when we'll go through all the A-League action. In the Super 15 last night, the Reds had a good win, 34-33 over the Highlanders in Dunedin. The Reds, that was their first win down there in the south of New Zealand in 31 years, and they came home with a bonus point as well. They almost blew a 15-point lead they had early in the second half, but I'll tell you what, they'll take a bonus point win in Dunedin every single day of the week. The NBL also into their final season. The New Zealand Breakers have been the best side all season, and they got their finals campaign off with a win over the Sydney Kings, 81-64. These are 3-game series they go through, and the winners advance to the final series. Game 2 in Sydney will be on Monday, and Game 3, if needed, will be in New Zealand on Wednesday. And the other side of the draw, the Perth Wildcats on Thursday night, 93-65 over the Wollongong Hawks. The Hawks, I should say. That was at Perth Arena. That was the 14th straight win for the Wildcats inside Perth Arena, so they're looking very, very good indeed at home, the Perth Wildcats. Big show for you planned today. There's so much to talk about. Loads happening in the world of rugby league. We'll talk about that after the first break, both the NRL and the QRL level as well. Loads happening there. Of course, the A-League, the final round of the A-League ahead of the final series. We'll wrap that up at 8:45. In the second hour of the show, we'll move on to the AFL. The first round of the AFL, the split round of the first round of the AFL continues this weekend. Plenty to talk there as well as the NEAFL. At 9:30, we've got Lee Hanneschek on the phone to talk motorsport, and boy, have we got some juicy stuff to talk about in motorsport this week after what happened in the F1 in Malaysia last week. It was unbelievable finish, and a guy, Sebastian Vettel, already wasn't very popular in Australia before this, but now he's even less popular after what happened there with Mark Webber. We'll talk about that at 9:30, and then to wrap up the show at 2:45, we'll get through some Super 15 rugby and a bit of netball with Darren Madigan. So stay with us here on 101 FM. We'll take a quick break now. We'll be back shortly.
Hi, Steve Karen Lawyers. We're independent insurance lawyers. We act for everyday people against insurance companies. We'll fight for you. Call Karen Lawyers on 1300 Lawyer. That's 1300 529 937, or go to karenlawyers.com.au.
Your station sponsor.
Hi, Daryl here for Coast Care. Thousands of Australians are working in Coast Care groups to protect our environment, taking action to protect and rehabilitate their local headlands, estuaries and dunes, and keeping waterways clear of garbage. If you'd like to be part of the solution, call Coast Care on 1800 803 772. That's 1800 803 772.
If you want the latest and best movies on the big screen, plus a delicious morning tea, all for a very low admission price, then you must come along to the 101 FM monthly movies at station sponsor, the Hyperplex Cinemas Loganholme. Keep listening for details of the next screening and then join us, Logan City's 101 FM.
Wait, huh?
Oui, monsieur.
Can I have the rest of this in a doggy bag?
But of course, I love doggies. But please make sure you store the food properly so it doesn't go off and cause food poisoning.
Looks fine to me.
Oui, it's fine now, but after 4 hours unrefrigerated, I wouldn't feed it to a dog.
I was thinking of having it tomorrow night.
Well, that's okay, as long as you put it straight in the fridge when you get home. Wait a minute, you don't have a dog, do you?
No, you're not French either.
A message from the Food Safety Information Council.
1 in 5 of us are affected.
10% of us will have at least one.
And the numbers double for Indigenous Australians.
Just as quick as a click of your fingers, it can happen to anyone at any time.
What would you do if someone close to you was having a seizure?
Imagine if it was your child.
My brother has it. My sister has it.
I have it.
I have it too.
You're not alone.
You're not different.
And you have a bright future ahead of you.
So click for kids.
I'm Amy Lee, and I'm part of it.
Life. Life is for living. So live it. Life. Life is for giving. So give it. Giving blood is cool. Needing it isn't. Red Cross. Give a little. Life is for living. Life is for giving. Help save lives. Please give blood.
101 FM.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James, and now joining us on the line, Mr. Darren Madigan. Darren, welcome to Sports Scene.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, everybody. Happy Easter. And I just want everybody to know I've made an executive decision this morning. Normally, after the 9 o'clock news pit stop, I'd ask you all to hold station. Whoever's in front goes on to win. But this morning, I'm going to let you all race. And everybody keep listening. It's going to be a beauty.
So you're going to let team orders go for this one. It's all fine, is it?
I think the events of this week dictate that I really can't have team orders this week. I've just got to let you all race.
I think that's the way to go. Of course, alluding to what happened with Mark Webber and Sebastian Vettel. Just a subtle little reference there. Of course, we'll talk about that at 9:30. But gee, Darren, what a mess that all was. Before we all jump into the Rugby League World head first, mate, have you got some tennis and golf results there for us?
Yeah, Miami's coming to an end this weekend. As far as the men are concerned, the first finalist has been decided. David Ferrer has beaten Tommy Haas 4-6, 6-2, 6-3. The other semi-final yet to be played. The boys coming on court in the night session. That'll be Richard Gasquet playing Andy Murray, and really, really happy to see that because Gasquet has possibly the best backhand in tennis. He's been sitting around number 10 in the world for a while, and up against Murray, it should be one of those matches you really want to sit down and watch if you've got an opportunity to do so. Serena Williams will play Maria Sharapova in the final, and they're first due on court very soon, actually, so they will play the final today. As far as the golf is concerned, there's a tournament, the Shell Houston Open in the men. Steve Wheatcroft currently leading at the moment after 2 rounds of 67. Best placed Australian is Matt Jones, all the way down, tied for 27th, and in the same spot, Aaron Badley as well. And as I said last week, Tiger Woods has regained the number 1 position in the world after winning that Arnold Palmer Invitational tournament. As far as the girls are concerned, they're playing in Carlsbad, California. Beatriz Ricari is currently leading the tournament, and Kari Webb tied for 6th at the moment there.
That's the stuff.
That brings you up to date.
Thanks for that, mate. And look, the thing with Tiger Woods being back at number 1, love him or hate him, he's the highest profile golfer in the world, and I think it is a boost to have him back at number 1 for the international game. But we'll leave that all there for the moment. We've got to jump into the Rugby League because there's a lot to talk about. We'll start with the Broncos Storm game last night, mate. Ethan, who did you like in that game for the Broncos? Well, of course, the fight back in the second half was good, but who were the players that stood out for you in that one?
Yeah, I think you touched on it before already, Kev, but Sam Thaiday there in the front row was absolutely sensational. I guess it's, as captain, he's probably been doing a little bit too much sort of talking and not enough leading, perhaps.
Right.
And he was really sensational there. He led the team forward there in the second half, and I think a lot of the Broncos' success in that at the start of the second half there sort of came off the back of Thaiday rolling forward, and then the backs all sort of, and the team sort of really sort of, pushed around him and all that sort of stuff. How did you see Brisbane?
It was pretty similar. I liked the same as well. I thought it was the first time probably this season that we saw Corey Norman click at the back. He had some slick hands at times, and something that was unexpected was that how much they exposed Melbourne's right side. The 4 tries down that side. They found a lot of success there. Josh Hoffman, of course, a hat-trick. Alex Glenn scoring down that side as well. Thought Jack Reed was good. Jack Reed scored down there as well. So the Broncos down their left side against the Melbourne right side defence. I think a lot of coaches would have taken note of that performance down the right side from Melbourne, leaking that many points. The question you got to ask with Melbourne, of course, we should just quickly say first, Josh Hoffman, he left the field with an Achilles strain, and David Stagg down with medial ligament tear. So both of them probably going to miss a few games, sadly, for the Broncos. But I got to ask with Melbourne, they've had such a tough opening to the season in terms of their travel. They went to England, back to Melbourne, up to North Queensland, back to Melbourne, now up to Brisbane. When are they going to run out of steam? Because they just seem to keep powering through. I think we probably saw signs of it in the second half last night, but Melbourne just keep on winning, and they're so professional.
They're amazing, aren't they? They're just incredible. I mean, I've sort of been thinking that for almost a few years now. It seems like surely Melbourne can't keep up this level for this amount of time, but they just keep doing it.
The other thing too, Ethan, on top of that, they're having a lot of hard road now. But you would suggest, and I haven't seen the fixture, but coming into the back end of the draw, they should actually have a lot of games closer to home, and which might suit them a lot better going in. So if they can sort of overcome this sort of a bit of a hiccup, it'll do well for them in the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely
Kevin,
right.
The other thing too is with the NRL, there's no equalisation system like they have in the AFL. So you don't have things like premiership windows and a draft to bring the...
Well, they have a pretty strict salary cap that's done the job. Yeah, no one's won back-to-back premierships since 92-93.
Yeah, you see, I don't subscribe to the salary cap being such a great thing when it comes to the equalisation side of things. I think the draft has more of an effect on that because you're bringing in actual...
I'll have to respectfully disagree with that, mate, because I think the competition's very, very even across the board.
Well, basically what I'm saying, though, is your argument about why are the Storm continuing? Do they have to stop? Do they have to stop competing the way they are?
I think not until their big three retire. I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is there any reason why the Storm can't continue what they're doing?
The thing with the Storm is they have a massive turnover of player every year. They lost about 7 or 8 players this year, gone. But as long as they keep those 3, and Craig Bellamy is so good at getting the players around them to do their job and the team as a whole to do their job, as long as they got those 3 and the other guys doing the job around them, the Melbourne Storm are going to be a force and continue to be a force because they got so many smart people around them.
And the other thing on that, Kev, and this is directed at the AFL side of it, Darren, is that you've got to remember when West Coast were up and going, they had a great side going and they were really competitive. Cousins, Kerr, Judd, they had their 3, and they for whatever reasons they departed. Like Cousins obviously had to go from and Judd went back to Victoria. So it does happen. So it's just a matter of time. What's going to come after this? Are they? Have they got players succeeding these other players? You just don't know, and it's really up to the structure of the club to see how they're going to perform in years to come.
And I think that's the big thing there with Melbourne, the structure of the club and the professionalism of the coaching setup. Like they probably won't unearth players of Smith, Cronk, and Slater's ability, but in terms of having the coaching structure there, they'll always get the best out of their players while they still got that sort of structure in place.
Exactly right. I don't want to harp on it too much longer because there's a lot more to talk about, but how good are those 3 guys? They just seem to never have a bad game. Billy Slater, 3 tries last night. Cooper Cronk was pinpoint with a lot of his kicking game, and Cameron Smith was exceptional from dummy half as well. That's why the Melbourne Storm continue to win games in seemingly all situations. Quick look at the other 2 games that have already been played. Yesterday, the South Sydney Rabbitohs, they're still unbeaten, 4 from 4 this season, 17-12 win over the Bulldogs. The Rabbitohs have been criticised for taking the foot off the pedal in recent weeks in the second half of games, but this week, 6-all at half-time, and the Rabbits were the ones that really lifted the intensity in the second half. A late try on full-time to Ben Barber for the Dogs made it look closer than it was. I thought Souths were pretty comfortable in that second half.
Yeah, I thought they were too, Kev. They were, and it's something we haven't really seen for Souths for a while now, but since they've got Maguire there as coach, they just look so composed, and a lot of it comes off the kicking game of their halfback Reynolds. He just controls field position for them, and they just look so much more composed than they ever have, really.
I'm going to call it right now. If New South Wales want to win Origin this year, Adam Reynolds has to be the halfback. He has to be.
I think so too. But we've already heard from, I think, Laurie Daly coming out saying Pearce is, I don't know, an early call.
Yes, he has said that. I didn't understand when they called that on Pearce a few years ago, and I think he's had his chance now. I think Adam Reynolds, outside of Cooper Cronk's, probably got the best kicking game in the competition for a halfback, and that's what they need at State of Origin level, a level head to execute their game plans. I think Adam Reynolds is the man for New South Wales, but I guess time will tell. We'll have to wait and see, but I think Adam Reynolds, if he keeps playing the way he's doing, it's going to be hard to ignore him. The other game this weekend, Manly 26 over the Tigers, 0 at Blue Tongue Stadium on Thursday night. Not a lot to talk about in this game. It was pretty one-sided, but there were 2 tries disallowed for obstruction, 1 on each side. Robbie Farah doesn't like it.
He was pretty vocal.
Yeah, as he tends to be, Robbie Farah. Basically, what the interpretation is now, no matter where it is on the field, whether it's 3 defenders in 20 metres away from the player, it's right there. If the attacking player, a decoy runner, comes through, initiates contact with the defender, it will be ruled no try. Ethan, what do you think of that? It's pretty much trying to make it black and white. What do you think?
The only thing is you can't really make obstruction black and white, unfortunately. I think we had a scenario in that game there where... or it might have been another game last weekend. But in terms of the defender making contact, the attacker making contact with the defender, and it was so far removed from where the actual try was scored that there would have been, like, that defender was absolutely no chance.
There were 2 last weekend. Cooper Cronk was disallowed a try for the Melbourne game, and then it was Brett Morris was disallowed a try against the Raiders for the Dragons. And both of them, it was a long way in field from where it actually happened. Look, for years, it seems that the obstruction rule is something that we've always argued over and complained about and never been able to find the right mix. But I tell you what, I don't like the idea of having two players come in contact and not even really taking a player out. There's no obstruction there just because they come in contact with each other 20 metres in from where the try is actually scored. I don't like it at all, and I don't, a lot of times I don't side with Robbie Farah, but this one I will, even though, the rule was changed last year because of, I just want to say this quickly, there were two main incidents that led to this rule change. One was in Origin where Justin Hodges scored that try when he ran behind Ben Hannett. The guy who threw his hands in the air with the quote-unquote cop-out was Robbie Farah, and then in round 24 last year it was Tigers versus Bulldogs. The Bulldogs scored a similar try. The man with his hands in the air calling for a penalty was Robbie Farah.
So it's got a fair bit of sway, doesn't it?
He has. Well, now it's gone the other way on him. He can't win either way. So, but yeah, I agree with him on this one. I think the way the instruction rule is being interpreted this year, I don't like it at all. But the bottom line, Manly, very good win, bouncing back from a loss to the Titans last week. You're listening to SportzScene here on 101 FM. Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James and Darren Madigan with you, going through the NRL round 4. We go through the rest of the round now. The Sharks against the Dragons, the local derby there. That'll be 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight at Sharks Stadium. These games are always intense, but I'll tell you what, the Dragons and most specifically their coach Steve Price under a lot of pressure, Ethan.
Yes, to put it lightly, they can't score a point, seemingly, the Dragons, so it's hard to look past the Sharks here, but yeah, as you were saying, it'll be physical. There's always a fair bit of feeling between these two clubs, so looking forward to that one tonight.
Yeah, it's hard to see the Sharks going down in that one, but as you say, sometimes in these local derbies, the unexpected happens and the underdogs get up, but it's hard to look past the Sharkies in that one. Tomorrow afternoon at Centrebet Stadium, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it'll be on Channel 9 at 4 o'clock our time. The Penrith Panthers host the Gold Coast Titans, and the Titans really, how much did their stock rise last week when they beat Manly in a tough, gritty game of football?
Yeah, I actually haven't seen the Titans play so far this year, Kev, but apparently their defence, they've only conceded 4 tries or something so far this year. Their two halves seem to be gelling really well, Caesar and Kelly, so yeah, you'd back them to sort of get up over Penrith. They've been a bit sort of wayward after that really good performance in round 1.
Well, the big difference with the Titans this year and last year, I think last year they still defended well. They grinded games out really well. The difference with them this year is that they're scoring points, and you got to give a lot of credit of that to Albert Kelly and Aiden Caesar, the young halves combination, who have been very, very good to start the year. Ashley Harrison has been named to play. Of course, this is the other thorny issue that came out through the week was the shoulder charge. Richie Fayoso, shoulder charge. There was a head clash in that as well. It knocked Ash Harrison unconscious. He was initially given a grade 3 charge, which was then downgraded by the judiciary. The argument for him was that the head clash was what knocked him out, but the argument against it, to I see, and why I think he's probably lucky that he got the downgrade, was there's no head clash if it wasn't for the late illegal tackle, and everyone knows the shoulder charge is an illegal tackle now. Exactly, and in that sort of situation where we saw the shoulder charge, it was pretty much a conscious decision really from Fayoso to go in for a shoulder charge. It was off the ball, but your thoughts on that one, Craig?
Well, I just think, is this a perfect opportunity at the start of the season to probably make a statement to try to alleviate this from the game?
That's what I thought was going to happen. That's just why I was even more surprised that he got off. But I guess good arguments on the part of Manly to get him off, and fair play to him. He'll only miss a week where he was looking at 4 before that. But Ash Harrison, Darren, I know the concussion thing's a big issue overseas, and we're not doctors here, but it doesn't sit easy with me, the fact that he's been named to play a week after he was knocked silly last week.
No, and generally most major sports around the world have some sort of policy for concussion, whether it be motorsport, football, whatever. I know with motorsport and that, generally, depending on the category you're in, if you're knocked out, it doesn't matter whether you've got concussion or not. If you're knocked out at any stage during an accident or whatever, you're immediately out for a week or 2. And that's before we even start talking about the effects of concussion. So most major sports take things pretty seriously. I think you've got to do this with football. I mean, we did a big thing on this on the show a few years ago, and got a doctor in from the Prince Charles Hospital to talk about it. The bottom line is, without going into the technicalities, you just don't muck around with the brain. And I mean, there are things to mitigate a lot of this stuff happening. And I mean, I know helmets and stuff like that are frowned upon in Australian sport, but it's not the first. It wouldn't be the first time players have had to wear them in any of the codes. And we have some great players down through the years who've chosen to wear them. I think Preston used to wear one. Yep. Memory serves. So if that's going to help, it's not going to completely remove it, because the brain slops around inside the skull. It doesn't just sit there. It sits in fluid. And it's the energy involved in whatever collision happens that makes it hurt. So I think for me personally, you've got to come up with a decent policy, and if the players don't like it tough, it's for their own good.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, they've named an extended bench, the Titans, including Luco Tawaya and Steve Michaels on that bench, so I still think there's every chance we could see a last-minute reshuffle with Ash Harrison taking that week off and maybe moving Greg Bird to lock and bring Dave Taylor into the starting side there. But Craig, there was a similar sort of scenario there with Kurt Tippett last year, was there not, with concussions and things in football?
Yeah, 100%. And look, I thought they dealt with it. I think the AFL, and once again, not being one-sided on this, is they do actually do it quite well. Like, there was an incident in the Carlton game. Mm-hmm. They actually give a period of time where the doctor has got time to actually assess the concussed player, and not just go, oh, he's concussed, he can't come on. It's not a cut and dry now. They actually give them a period of time. If they don't come up to speed and they haven't recovered fully in that sort of time, they just don't allow them back on the ground. And I think in Kurt's case, when you have multiple heat clashes and you're concussed, they do automatically put on a week's rest or 2 weeks rest according to the severity of the injury.
That's it. We'll have to leave it there for the moment. We've got to take a break. When we come back, we'll finish off the rest of the round and move into the QRL as well.
Do you have a street light that's not functioning correctly outside your property? Perhaps you've noticed a floodlight over a zebra crossing that's not operating. Well, Energex would like you to report it to them by calling 13 12 53 or completing an online form for faulty streetlights on their website at energex.com.au. Remember also that the council has to pay the running cost of all the streetlights, whether they're working or not. So let's get the most for our rateable dollar by reporting the streetlights not functioning to Energex on 13 12 53 or on their website energex.com.au.
Four-wheel driving on Fraser Island can be dangerous. Take sand driving seriously. Don't let your trip turn to tragedy. Slow down, stick to the speed limit. In good conditions, 80 kilometres an hour on the beach and 30 on inland tracks. Slower is safer. Seatbelts save lives. Wear them, it's the law. Police patrol the beach anytime. Make your visit to Fraser fun, not fatal.
If you want to know what's happening on the roads, make sure you tune into 101 FM Monday to Friday during Breakfast and Drive for the latest traffic updates, presented by your station sponsor, Yellow Cabs.
101 FM Finance Update. Now it's back to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Yes, welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's 32 minutes past 8. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. It's Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James and Darren Madigan with you. It's time to zip through the rest of the NRL Round 4. The Knights up against the Raiders, 5:30pm Eastern Standard Time at Hunter Stadium on Sunday afternoon. Ethan, the Raiders, Reece Robertson was very, very good for them last week, but aside from that, they still gave the Dragons plenty of chances to win that game. The Dragons just couldn't take advantage. I really like the Knights at home in this one, given how good they were last week.
Yeah, so do I, Kevin. The Raiders came through on the back of the hoodoo last week, I suppose, there against St George. But yeah, it's hard to see the Knights going down this one at home. They were very impressive last week, I thought. And they're just playing such a tough brand of footy.
There was another word for the performance of the Cowboys on that night too, and we'll get to them in a minute because they're the next game. But Tyrone Roberts at halfback, this is the talk now. Kurt Gidley out of the side. Tyrone Roberts comes in, has a blinder. What's the best place for Kurt Gidley when he comes back into this side?
That's a very good question, and one that I don't really have an answer to. He's a good footy player, Kurt Gidley, but I still don't think he's really found his spot. Perhaps maybe they could throw him in at dummy half, and he can sort of maybe share the duties there with Danny Badeiras, who can't really get through a full game now at his age. So that could be the way to go. But yeah, they did look very good with Roberts there at halfback and Mullen at 5'8". So
they did, and he likes to play fullback, Kurt Gidley, but they got Darius Boyd there. That he's not going to move from there. He also plays in the halves. They seem to have found something there with Mullen and Roberts. So it seems that the only spot left for him is 9 or 14. There is 2 spots, and I think the sensible way to go is to do it that way with him, because like we say, Danny Badeiras, he can still go, but probably not for 80 minutes anymore. But also wait and see what happens with that. It's probably a happy headache for Wayne Bennett to have there at the Knights. But yeah, I expect them to win that game against the Raiders. Although the Raiders may have found something last week in that win, they have got a talented roster. But I will be tipping the Knights. The Warriors up against the Cowboys, 3pm Eastern Standard Time at Mount Smart Stadium on Monday afternoon. Cowboys were pretty poor last week, I've got to say. It was similar. They had a performance like this early in the season last year where they just turned over way too much ball and they copped a hiding. Can't remember who it was against, but it was the first game of the season. They were dreadful. That's what they were like last week against the Knights, and the Knights really punished them. But they come up against the Warriors, who I'm still not tipping because they still haven't won a game. They've lost 11 straight now. So surely you'd have to think the Cowboys will bounce back, even though they got a long road trip over to New Zealand.
You'd have to think so. So the Warriors are, well, the Cowboys were ordinary last week, but the Warriors just generally just in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, the Warriors were probably worse last week. They got, the Sharks gave it to them last week. And what is the problem with the Warriors, mate? Because they've got some talent in that roster. Is it the youth in the side? Is it a lack of confidence? Is it a lack of attitude? What's the problem? I haven't seen them play too much, but I think it's just a lack of attention to detail with the Warriors. They don't have that sort of really gritty attitude to get through all the hard work and the tough stuff that a lot of the other teams do. And if you don't have that, you're going to get shown up. And they've been shown up for the past 11 matches, which they haven't won. So. Yeah, they're going to be under a lot of pressure at home.
But at the end of the day, what do they do to get out of this slump? Is it your team roster? Is it your coaching staff? What is it?
Well, they've got a brand new coach this year, a whole new coaching staff in Matthew Elliott. So maybe it's not that. It's got to be a problem within the playing group, I think. Whether it's an attitude problem,
culture,
it could be a culture problem at that club. It's always been a sort of thing. But you got to remember they've got to contend with a lot more travel than a lot of other clubs. There's a lot more things like that. But it appears to be an attitude problem at times at that club, and whether that's a youth thing or what, nobody's put their finger on it yet. Matthew Elliott still hasn't put his finger on it. Yes, Darren.
Kevin, how are they looking as a side at the moment? I mean,
you mean on
the
paper?
Thing we used to always say about the Warriors is they were very, very simple. I mean, they had a great back line and they had a forward pack that just beat up on other sides. And we used to go and watch them when they were playing the Titans or the Broncos, and we'd be sitting up there in the box watching what was going on, and they'd come out into the field and they were huge.
Yeah.
And they just had a reputation for their forwards just beating up on other teams and the backs just coming through and scoring tries. And they made a grand final out of that. And they won a lot of games doing that. I mean, how are they looking now?
Well, you look at them on paper, mate, they've still got that big forward pack. Sam Rapira, Ben Madalino, Jacob Lilliman off the bench for them, Simon Mannering in the back row, Felini Matteo. They've still got the big forwards that can get the job done. And then you look at the back line on paper, there's a lot of talent there. Kevin Lachlan, Fishiahi, Dane Nielsen's an Origin player, Conrad Hurrell. Look, on paper, they should be playing a lot better than they do, which leads me to think there's a lack of attitude and a lack of confidence at that club at the moment. There's no reason a club with as much talent they've got on their roster should have lost 11 straight, which is what makes it so hard to exactly pinpoint what's wrong with them. It's tough to say with the Warriors. But like you say, Darren, look, they've still got the big forward pack. They've still got some exciting backs. They've still got the ability to do it. We just haven't seen it for a long, long time. But I can't tip the Warriors in that one. I'm tipping the Cowboys.
They haven't won.
Yeah, given that. They still haven't won yet. I'm still working on that policy. It's worked all right for me. The final game of the round, the Roosters host the Eels at Allianz Stadium, 6 p.m. Monday night. I'll tell you who was great last week was Sonny Bill Williams. 38 tackles, 15 runs for over 115 metres or something like that. Look, that's what I wanted to see from him. If I'm a Roosters fan, not necessarily to come in and start throwing flick passes everywhere to start the season, but to come out, play 80 minutes and have a really good work rate. The rest of it's going to feed on it. I think Sonny Bill Williams has had some outstanding signs early this season.
Yeah, and that I guess that shows where his headspace is really. Like he's in it and he's really putting in for his team, which I think is a really good sign for the Roosters and for Sonny Bill himself. Like he's not coming in, for a bit of a sort of prance around to sort of throw a few fancy flick passes and do all the tricky stuff. He's in it to really work hard for his team, and I think he has been sensational so far.
And I think a lot of people were worried of that with Sonny Bill, that he was there for a payday and he was there to dance around there and the NRL waiting for the Rugby Union World Cup to come around again. But he's putting his body on the line every week. He's going out there, he's having a real dig, and the flashy stuff will come with him because he's such a good player. But the fact with him, he's got to get match fit, he's got to keep going. I don't think you could have asked for much more than him. He set up their only try last week. He's had another couple line break assists. So, look, I think he's been really good. I don't think he's probably got the credit he's deserved in the first few weeks. And I think a lot of people have a lot to say about Sonny Bill Williams, but one thing about him is he's clearly matured a lot since the last time he was playing rugby league, I feel, at least. But I've been very happy with the way he's played so far this year. The Eels, can they bounce back from last week?
Who knows? Who knows with Parramatta at the moment? I mean... They're up, they're down, they're sideways, and they're everywhere else. They're all over it. it's hard to look past the Roosters in this one. I think they're just a bit too consistent at this point for Para. But you never know. Someone with Jared Hayne and some of the players that Para do have in their side, they're enigmatic and can turn it on, when they feel like it, I suppose.
Yeah, you're not wrong. There's some danger about the Eels. I just think they'd have to turn their attitude around 100% from what they put out there last week against the Tigers. So I have to tip the Roosters at home. I think they're starting to look pretty good. They're starting to find their groove, the Roosters. We should say Luke O'Donnell was stood down during the week. Big signing off season. Stood down for being late to training. I think that's a good sign of discipline. I'm always for that sort of discipline stuff. So I'm okay with that decision there for the Roosters. That wraps up the discussion for the fourth round of the NRL. It's 40 minutes past 8 now. 20 minutes to the next news update at 9 o'clock. Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James and Darren Madigan with you. It's time now to talk a little bit of Intrust Super Cup, Ethan, and there's one game already been played this weekend. The Central Capras 24 defeat the Burleigh Bears 18 at Brown Park up in Rocky. The Bears led 18-4 at half-time and no points in the second half. The Capras came storming home. That's an alarming thing for Bears fans to see, I think, in a game they really should have won.
It is, yeah. What is going on? Are they big upset up there?
Well, they've just been really patchy over the last... I saw the first two... I obviously didn't travel up to Rockhampton to see this one, but the first two games, the Bears have been patchy. At times, they've looked good. They probably should have won the game last week against the Northern Pride, but a lapse towards the end of the game cost them. The Bears have got to find an 80-minute performance to start winning. They're now the only team in the competition that haven't won a game, and they're better than that.
They are better than that.
They are better than that. They've got some talented players on that side, and they've shown in patches that they are better than that. They've just got to put it into an 80-minute performance, which is, speaking to the coach at the end of the games in the first two rounds, that's been the main theme for him as well, is we've got to play for 80 minutes. That's the big thing for the Bears, but giving up an 18-4 half-time lead, not scoring a point in the second half is a very, very disappointing result for the Bears. We'll jump now to the TV game this week, mate. The Ipswich Jets up against the East Tigers, 2 p.m. Sunday at North Ipswich Reserve. The East Tigers upset the Dolphins last week. It was on the back of an incident where we'll get to it in a little bit with Luke Capewell getting sent off for the Dolphins. They didn't score again after that, but we'll focus on the East Tigers' performance. A good win for them, and it really shows how good they're going to be this season.
Yeah, great win. They hadn't won there at Redcliffe since 2006, so that's 7 years ago, without getting a win up there on the peninsula. I went up with the team on the bus, and there's just such a good feeling around the squad at the moment. Like everyone was confident but relaxed at the same time, and that sort of translated out onto the field. They played some really tough footy, and I think there's some really positive signs heading forward. But I mean, it's only round 2, so there's definitely plenty of footy to go. But yeah, I'm guessing the big talking point out of that one was Capewell send-off, which I guess we'll have a chat about now.
We will when we get down to the Redcliffe game in a little bit. The Ipswich Jets last week, narrow winners over the sunny coast. What do you make of this one? You're tipping the East Tigers to get a win on the road again?
I think so, yeah. Ipswich are always tough, though, and generally the matches between Easts and Ippy, there's always a bit of feeling between the two there. So, yeah. And Ipswich are a tough proposition on their home turf, but I think East have got enough starch in the forward pack to match Ipswich, and I think they've got a little bit too much speed and agility in the backs there. So,
fair enough. The next game in the rail will move to Saturday afternoon now. We'll get away from the TV game. The Northern Pride, 24-22 winners over the Bears last week, up against the South Logan Magpies, who got a good win last week over the Norths Devils, upset them at home. It's a tough road trip away, but you'd have to think the Magpies will have a little bit behind them after that win at home, but tough trip away up to the Northern Pride.
Yeah, it is. It's a big travel for the teams down there, southeast Queensland, going all the way up to Cairns. But I think South will match it for a while with the Northern Pride, I think. But the Pride have got that class in the halves and the backs. I think will sort of show through there. That
was the thing I thought watching last week. I thought Robert Louis was probably a little bit in and out of the game, but he scored a try and set up 3 as well. And when you got a guy, and he was similar in the first round, you got a guy of the quality of Robert Louis playing in this competition, it's a massive advantage. So it's hard to tip against the Northern Pride at home in that one. The winner Manly Seagulls had a good win last week over the Tweed Seagulls. They're back at home this week up against Mackay, 2 p.m. Sunday at Cougarai Oval. How do we see it? Winner Manly, does that it sort of erases the first round performance for them? Are they back on track now?
To an extent. I mean, they still let in, I think it was 22 points against Tweed. So from their point of view, that's not sensational defence. But I think Mackay are a bit of a chance here. I'm hearing maybe Ashton Sims and Anthony Mitchell could be dropping back to play for them.
Right.
From the Cowboys, of course. So I wouldn't go past Mackay here to maybe ruffle a few feathers down there in the chook pen.
Fair enough. North's Devils up against the Sunny Coast Sea Eagles. The Sunny Coast, I think, are quite impressive this year, considering the season they had last year. Narrow loss last week to the Jets, a win in round one. How do you see this one going down?
Yeah, they're improving for sure, Sunny Coast. But Norths have got that really sort of tough edge to the forward pack and a fair few sort of fringe Broncos players in their lineup as well. So I think they'll have too many points in there for Sunny Coast, but Sunny Coast, they're definitely punching above their weight, and I think it's really good to see.
Yep, that'll be up at Bishop Park up at 3 p.m. on Sunday afternoon.
They flattened out Bishop Park.
I heard, big renovations there. It'll be the first game there this season. The final game of the round, the Redcliffe Dolphins up against the Tweedhead Seagulls, 3 p.m. Sunday at Dolphin Oval. The Dolphins don't lose 2 games in a row at home all that often, and they get the boost of Luke Capewell has been named to play after he got his charge for striking downgraded. He was sent off last week against the East Tigers. Ethan, you were there. Apparently, not a lot of people saw exactly what happened, and was it caught on camera, or was it missed on camera too?
It was missed on camera. The ref missed it, and he was essentially sent off on the basis of one touch judge's report.
Right.
So no one really saw what happened, but I can assure you that the East halfback Toddy Murphy definitely felt the force of a bit of an elbow and a few punches. So I'm guessing perhaps a lot of people are saying that the send-off was probably a little bit harsh, but if you're going to throw an elbow at a player after he's kicked the ball and then follow that up with a few punches, I mean, nothing good is going to come of that for you or your team, really.
Right, that's fair enough. But the lack of evidence probably played a part in his getting off the charge, I suppose.
Yeah, you'd have to think that'd be the case. And I think he got downgraded as opposed to being let off entirely. So they obviously found enough. Well, still had enough evidence to charge him with something, but not enough for it to be an actual suspension.
Yeah, fair enough. Who do you like in that one, mate? Dolphins at home with Luke Capewell in the side. You'd have to think they look pretty good there. They don't lose 2 games at home on the road.
You'd have to think they'd bounce back. I mean, they've got all those players. They're big Petro still pushing forward as always. So it's hard to look past the Dolphins at home. They'll bounce back, I think, for sure.
Absolutely right. That's the QRL wrap for the moment. No Bycroft Cup this weekend. They're all off for Easter, which means I get a week end off too, which is fine by me.
Easter
especially the Bears have already played too. I'll enjoy it. My only one for 6 months. We'll take a break there. When we come back, it's time to talk some A-League. Plenty happening in the A-League. It's the final round before the semi-finals, so stay with us.
What happens when a young rock and roller from the wrong side of the tracks falls in love with a rich man's daughter?
He's wonderful. He loves me and I love him.
I'm not rubbish, Mr. Burns.
When poverty walks in the door, love flies out the window.
Come and ride the rock and roll roller coaster that is the world premiere run of new British musical Billy Bucket at the Crete Street Theatre, Beenleigh, from April 26th to May 11. Get your tickets online from BeenleighTheatreGroup.com or call 3287 1377. Be there or be square.
Life is for living, so live it. Life is for giving, so give it. Giving blood is cool, needing it isn't. Red Cross. Give a little. Life is for living. Life is for giving. Help save lives. Please give blood.
Hi, I'm Nikki Buckley with a tip on how you can support Coast Care. Now, when boating, use biodegradable oil in your 2-stroke engine whenever possible and always anchor securely in a sandy space. The reefs and seagrass beds can be damaged when anchors are allowed to shift. For more coastline information, call 1800 603 772.
We play the biggest hits and the greatest memories. Logan City's 101 FM. And now it's back to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's 11 minutes to 9. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. It's time to go through some A-League now. We're into the 27th round of the A-League. Can you believe that's gone already? I know. It feels like yesterday the footy seasons were finishing and the A-League was starting up. Now it's coming to an end and it's all come full circle, so to speak. But after what's been a very hot and cold year for the Brisbane Roar, they secured their spot in the semi-finals with a dominant win over Sydney FC 3-1. It leaves Sydney FC sweating on other results, namely the Perth Glory. Perth just need a draw or a win to leapfrog Sydney FC, which I kind of want to see Sydney get through just so I can see Del Piero play again. He got another goal the other night, and he's been terrific for the comp. But Darren, I'll go to you with this one. The Brisbane Roar, we've been talking all season. If they sneak their way into the semi-finals, there'll be a chance. They've got some momentum now. Can they make it 3 in a row?
Look, I wouldn't think so. But I think they're good enough to cause a lot of havoc in the final series. But I think it's pretty hard at the moment to go past the top 2. And I know that sounds like sitting on the fence, and I don't do that. But, geez, Wanderers have just been so good. And Mariners have been quite quiet throughout the season, but they've just kept winning, except when they come up against the Wanderers, of course. So, yeah, I think the Raw have done really well to get as far as they had, and they'll probably go a week into the final series, and I think that will probably be it.
Look, yeah, good odds they'll be playing either Adelaide or Melbourne Victory in Melbourne or Adelaide, respectively. They just beat Adelaide in Adelaide a couple of weeks ago. I think they'd fancy their chances against them down there again now. And really, I think they've got... even against the Central Mariners, I think they'd be a real shot too. But, gee, the Western Sydney Wanderers are looking very, very hard to beat, and they proved that again last night. A 3-0 win over Newcastle at Newcastle. 22,000 people there. I reckon 15,000 of them were Wanderers fans travelling up the road. How good is it to see the passion coming out of those supporters and the way they're playing? The Wanderers, they started the season with terrific defence, but maybe a little uninspired in front of goal. But now their attack is flowing. The defence is still great. It's really hard to see them getting beaten from here.
Yeah, and it's an incredible situation for them to be in. I mean, not just because of what they have done, but because where they're doing it. I mean, the area that they've got to draw off is something like 2.5 million people. Now, I don't know if there's a football club in Australia in any code that can do that. I mean, the closest would probably be the Broncos, and they're drawing off, 1.5 million in the southeast corner. So, it's just an amazing achievement what the Wanderers have done. I mean, I've got to sit with where they're at the moment, what they've achieved already. I can't see anybody beating them.
No, they're in red hot form and looking very, very strong. I just see it on grand final day how mad those fans are going to go if they reach all the way to the grand final. The success of them in their first season is such a great story. Can we remember, I'll ask you guys in the AFL, the closest thing I can remember in NRL of this sort of thing is Melbourne Storm winning in the second year they won the grand final. Have we had anything close to this in the AFL, Craig?
Well, I've touched on it before, but the thing is, at QAFL level has been done, a premiership one in their first year, but not at the elite level.
Who was that again?
Oh, I can't remember. But yeah, at AFL level, obviously there was the very first competition. There was a winner, but look, yeah, I haven't seen it, and the way they set it up in probably NRL and Australian rules, it doesn't. You can't facilitate a premiership or close to even in your first year because it's just not structured possibly strong enough.
Fair enough. Well, look, it's been a great story and it's built a lot of hype around the competition. The new boys coming up, the marquee players. Look, it's been a great boom year for the A-League. It's no doubt about that. Quick look at the rest of the round. The Central Coast Mariners currently sitting in second, coming up against the Melbourne Heart, who are in ninth. That'll be 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time up at Hunter Stadium, up at Blue Tongue Stadium, rather. The Mariners, they will finish second regardless of the result. The Heart, they're trying to avoid the wooden spoon. They're on equal points at the moment with Wellington Phoenix, but ahead in goal difference. You'd have to think probably a draw. The Phoenix playing Melbourne Victory. So you think a draw or a win would get them across the line to not finish in last place, but can't see either of that happening. I think the Mariners will probably win that one at home and get some momentum heading into a week off into the semi-finals. The Perth Glory up against Adelaide United. This is probably the game to watch for this weekend now that the first two games are out of the way. 5:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over in Perth at NIB Stadium. The Glory, if they win or draw this game, they will go past Sydney FC on goal difference and play semi-finals football. Adelaide United, they have a chance if results go their way to move up into third as well. But Perth Glory, Darren, a win at home for them, probably in a similar boat to the Raw, a side that you wouldn't want to see sneak into the finals.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, that's the thing with these. So when you get these sides that, probably haven't played as well as their rosters would suggest they should have, they can cause an awful lot of trouble late in the season. And the Perth Glory is a lot like the Raw in that respect, even though they can't make the finals now.
Perth Glory.
No, they can't, can they?
They can, yeah, that's what I just said. If they could draw or win.
31 points.
Perth Glory.
Yeah.
Draw or win or see them go past Sydney FC into sixth.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, it's still a bit unlikely, though, isn't it? I mean, you've got the Raw sitting on 35. I mean, you would think that that final system is probably where they're sitting at the moment. But look, as far as the Perth Glory are concerned, they're playing Adelaide. Yeah, I still think Adelaide will come away from that with a win.
Fair enough. Look, the final structure, how it works, we got the top 6 go through. The first round, the first and second ranked teams they get a week off to rest and all recuperate. Meanwhile, third place plays 6th, fourth plays 5th. The winners of those games advance, and then the winners of those semi-finals advance to the grand final. That's how it'll all work. The final round, final game of the season, the regular season at least, Wellington Phoenix host the Melbourne Victory over at Westpac Stadium, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow afternoon. It's hard to see the Victory going down in this one. They should win and get some momentum heading in. So likely finish, you'd have to say Wanderers first, followed by the Mariners, Victory, Adelaide, the Raw, and then either Sydney or Perth. So that's how it's all shaping up in the A-League. 5 minutes to 9 now here on SportzScene. Next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour. There was one other big event in the world of football Australia this week. It was the World Cup qualifier up against Oman at ANZ Stadium. 36,000 people turned up, and they were treated to a pretty poor first half performance. I've got a grab for you here from Mark Bosnich. This is taken from the Fox Sports commentary. What he had to say at halftime. Have a listen, because he did not hold back.
Bozza, how do you sum up what you've just seen?
Well, I'm going to say exactly what I think Holger should be saying. Well, if he's not, then he shouldn't be there. That was an absolute pathetic first half performance. If they play like that for the next 45 minutes, they're not going to win this game. It's going to make it very difficult to qualify for the World Cup. If they don't want to be out there, they can come and tell him, look, I don't really fancy it tonight, and put somebody on who wants to be out there. Once he's calmed down and actually give him an absolute you-know-what, or to all of them, a few little things. If we can't get the ball early forward and they happen to come back on the edge of their box, we spoke about it beforehand. They need to be moved around. If we're going to play at 2 miles an hour, I might as well go out there and play it. All right? They need more movement, but they need movement together. If Timmy comes short, Frosty's got to go in behind. If Holman comes inside, Matty Mackay's got to go down. It needs to be coordinated. They're just going one out. If this continues, they'll lose this game, and I'm telling you now, they will struggle to qualify for the World Cup.
Bozza pulling no punches there. It feels like that sort of sentiment has been simmering for a little while, and it boiled over for him there at half-time. Australia trailing 2-0. Darren, it's going to be a little bit tough for them to after this draw. It's going to be much tougher for them to qualify for the World Cup. What were your thoughts on the situation there with the performance, what Bozza said, and where they're going now into the World Cup?
Yeah, look, the first, for those who aren't aware, the first 2 in the group go through, and then the third place basically has to participate in a playoff to try and get through. It's a horrible situation to be in for a side that was expected to pretty much cruise it through to the World Cup. Hard to disagree with Bozzy. I mean, we were 2-0 down, I think, at half-time, and that's when he burst out with what he said. And, he is an absolute student of the mechanics of the game, and I think he is living this campaign with those boys, because he's not that many years out from playing himself. And, I mean, it's hard to disagree with what he said. I mean, Australia's in big trouble. I mean, make no mistake. And, the coach's job's on the line as well on this one. If they don't make it through, it's goodbye to him as well. So how long before? I think Lucas Neal's out for just one match, isn't he, on suspension?
Look, and there's 3 games remaining. One will be against Japan, who lead the pool by 7 points. They're way out in front. That'll be in Japan as well. That's going to be a tough one. And another one against Jordan, who just beat Japan during the week. So it's not going to be easy for them to finish in the top 3 of that pool.
No, and look, the Japan games are incredibly difficult at the best of times. They play a very interesting style of football on the world stage. Jordan was a bit of a shock, I think, to everyone, especially when they beat Japan. So you've got 2 very difficult matches there coming up. Bottom line is we're in trouble, and we've just got to at least come away with a win and a draw to even have a chance of finishing in second spot. So, it's a big worry. Should also point out, too, UEFA Champions League quarterfinals are on this week. PSG play Barca and Bayern Munich Juve on Wednesday morning. And on Thursday morning, our time, we've got Malaga playing Dortmund and Real Madrid playing Galatasaray. So they're back up and running again as well.
Yeah, we got just under a minute until the news, mate. But how big a blow is it to Australian football if the Socceroos miss the World Cup? Given how good the A-League season has been for publicity, how big a setback is it if they miss the Cup?
Absolutely massive. The World Cup is what gets the non-football follower to actually show any interest in the game whatsoever. And they've done a magnificent job on the A-League, but they've got to remember that it's not going to have as massive amount of publicity unless they get a free-to-air television deal. So it's not as big as people are making it, although it's much bigger than it's ever been.
Exactly right. And look, the World Cup is the pinnacle of it for us, and it's what made the whole sport blow up in the country in the first place when Australia made it in 2006. But we've got to go to the news now. Stay with us on Sports Scene. We're coming up after the news. We're going to talk some AFL. Plenty to talk about. Stay with us. 101 FM.
Your station, 101 FM, with Saturday Sports Scene.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley from the AFL Queensland Hall of Fame, Ethan James from the QRL, and Sports Scene founder Darren Madigan here with you, as always, taking you through all the latest and greatest issues in the world of sport. Jam-packed first hour there, flew by here, talking some AFL and the A-League as well. Now it's time to move on to the AFL. We're into the first round of the AFL season. Split round. The results so far, of course, way back last Friday, or a week ago now, Essendon getting up over Adelaide 117-82, and then last Saturday night, Freo 108 over West Coast 80. Before we get on to the Richmond-Carlton game, was that a bit of a surprise, the gap in that one? I know, Craig, you and Darren both tipped West Coast to go very well this season.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I think you'll find the significant losses probably panned out better for Freo in that game. Like, I think Nat Nui and obviously Lacroix during the course of the game being injured, which is really a big shame, possibly breaking his arm after coming back after reconstruction. But I think we also spoke about this, and we were pretty unsure of how Freo would go after the second year of Ross Lyons coaching. And obviously they've adopted a very good style of football that they can play regardless of who's in their side. So I think that's pretty important. They took it, more than right up to the West Coast. But look, I don't think you can underestimate West Coast in the first game. The derbies are a derby. They're a 50-50 bet, regardless of where they are positioned on the ladder. So I'd still be wary of them, but a bit of a surprise that Freo went as far as I did.
Fair enough. Darren, what do you think of it?
Well, half-time, things were looking great as far as my tip was concerned. And, when they lost, obviously having Nat Nui and that out was a huge loss. We said that at the time. I didn't think it was going to play out the way it did, though. And obviously with Lacroix getting hurt again, you've got to feel for the guy, don't you? He comes back after a knee and goes and breaks his arm. Yeah. I know we can sit there and say that's footy, but you've got to feel for him, right?
It's the sport we play. It's a contact sport.
It is.
We run the gauntlet every time we go out in the ground, and unfortunately, you never like to see it happen. But you're not immune to it just because you've had a knee reconstruction. You're a chance every time you go out there.
Yeah, it's a sad reality of a tough sport. On Thursday night, Darren, I know you're going to like this. Richmond getting up 14-22, 106 over Carlton, 14-17, 101.
Geez, I tell you what, it's tough being a Richmond fan. Everyone knows that, but goodness me, do they know how to... I take my hair off by choice, but if I had any at the moment, I'm sure there'd be none left after Thursday night. We were so far ahead, and we damn nearly blew it.
But they didn't, Darren.
Well, they did, 14-22, 14-17. Yeah, we weren't converting. There was so many things not going right around the field. Even Rewalt wasn't kicking goals. It was, when they played well, they played very well, and they left me with enough belief to stick with my tip for them to make the 8 this year, even if it is in 8th place. But, I tell you what, they want to play better than that. A lot better than that as the season go on. The lead up to the match was really focused around Mick Malthouse, which was probably a good thing for Richmond. Yeah. There was 80,000 people there or something 81. Like that. They said on the night. Fantastic crowd, a great way to kick the season off, which normally is a traditional opener. But Richmond. The bottom line is, Richmond was so far ahead, they should have walked away with this game, with heads held high, with a 7 or 8 goal win, and really to come away with a 5-point win with your nails chewed down right to the bottom. It's probably, they want to play a lot better than that for the rest of the season.
In the end, a win's a win in round 1, though, isn't it, Craig?
Well, and that's 100% on that, because at the end of the day, look at the ramifications if they had lost. Yeah. Okay, that would have been so demoralising for Richmond. On the flip side, albeit just within a kick, they've gone on and they've now thought, well, yes, Carlton came back at us, but we held on to win the game. The tackle by Luke McGuan, was significant, obviously, and that goes a lot towards our game is now forward pressure. It was just, I think it was a game well won. Carlton, to the credit of the Carlton Football Club, Mickey Moldhouse, great coaching effort, drops the tags and actually threw it to them, and they nearly got away with it. Even they're finding their feet with a new coach. So you've got to remember they had a style of football they were playing. They've changed the coach. This all takes time, and the best way to do it doesn't matter how much training you've done. It's a case of game practice, and they'll go further and further. Like they did significantly well in the NAB Cup. Now they've gone on here and pushed Richmond, and we all said Richmond are going to improve this year, which they did, and that was evident. I think a couple of significant points. It was, and you always say this, Darren, too, it's about time Cochin and Deledio I reckon they've shaked off they're going to be a good player tag. They are actually at it now. Like I know they were significant and they're building up to it, don't get me wrong, but I reckon they are real leaders and champions of the sport. Significant point also, they did it without Rewell kicking a goal, and he's changed his form out of the game. So there's a lot of upside for Richmond in that. You're taking the other side of it. I think it was a great thing in the AFL, what they've done with Robinson and the concussion rule. We spoke about it in the NRL. Kudos to those guys for doing that and making sure that the first port of call was the safety of the player, and I think that's really significant. And look, as much as I'm not going to throw a damper on Richmond's win, but if Hampson kicks straight, Darren, I think you're in a spot of trouble.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I'm just looking at the kickers at the moment. I mean, Deledio kicked 3. Vickery was very good. He kicked 3 as well. But, I agree totally. Deledio, Cochin, these guys have got to take the next step up. At the moment, yes, they get Brownlow votes, and yes, they get talked about at the start of the year, as Cochin is at the moment.
But it's the leadership qualities, isn't it, now?
Yeah, it really is. They need to take that next step up and be match winners, and be match winners off the field as well. And I know you know what I mean when I say that. Yep. I mean, it's like they've got to be part of that big leadership group and make Richmond, the thing that made Richmond so strong for so many years, and it is a lot of years ago, I know, but they were feared by other clubs, and they haven't been feared for 2 decades. And they've got to be feared again. They've got to have those players in the side that step up, and they've got to have what is virtually a mosquito fleet there in the midfield doing their job and stepping up and being leaders of the club. When that happens, look out.
Well, the bottom line of that is Richmond got the win in that first game there. It feels like now the season is open after that game's out of the way, the traditional opener. We move on to the rest of the round. The Western Bulldogs host the Brisbane Lions, the NAB Cup champions, 12:40pm Eastern Standard Time at Etihad Stadium this afternoon.
Well, we looked through, as we spoke about prior to all the footy, we went through the list. One thing that was significant about the Western Bulldogs list, they are rebuilding. They're under a new coach for their second year. Lions have gone past that in the fact that now they've stabilised a lot of their players. They've got a lot of 50-game players in their group. They've got a bit of cohesion within their side, and they've recruited quite well. So, look, obviously, being a Queenslander now, or an adopted Queenslander, you'd have to go for the Lions in this game. But the Bullies have been showing a bit of form pre-season.
Fair enough. Look, we got GWS Giants up against the Sydney Swans, the Battle of the Bridge. The Battle of the Bridge, 3:40pm Eastern Standard Time at ANZ Stadium. Look, last year we were saying if they get within 50-odd points, it'll be a good performance from the Giants. What sort of goals should they be looking at this year against the Swans?
Do you want to start on that one, Darren?
Well, I think... Yeah, it's probably not a bad figure, actually. I mean, you're coming up against such a great side in the Sydney Swans. Look, the league obviously wants this to become a really big match. I mean, they're scheduling it at the Olympic Stadium. They want it to become a great derby along with some of the other great derbies or derbies around the country. And it's going to take a while for that to happen. Look, I'll be surprised if the Giants get within, say, 6 or 7 goals. I think I'm being nice to them there. Yeah, I mean, they're a better side than a lot of people give them credit for, but they are up against the Sydney Swans this week.
What sort of headway are the AFL making into Sydney? Now, with these, of course, they're pushing hard for this game to be a big one and the rest. The work of GWS and the Sydney Swans winning the comp last year, how's the progress going for the AFL moving into Western Sydney?
Darren, I reckon just before the joint seller here, believe it or not, would be the Wanderers.
The Wanderers, yeah.
Creating an interest in sport in general, and they'll get on the back of this the GWS people will support them. I reckon that's the biggest significant. People support's going to be huge. Whether the talent is there at this stage, there's talent there, don't get me wrong, but I think the experience is the biggest thing but I reckon what they've done with the whole sporting structure in the Western area is significant.
Absolutely. And look, this is the point I was trying to make earlier in the show when I was talking about the Wanderers. 2 million people. 2 to 2.5 million people in the area. There is room for the NRL teams, the AFL side and the A-League side to all prosper in this area. And honestly, I do believe that this is where the AFL need to market themselves. They can't go up against these clubs and say, we're better than you, or our game is much better than yours. They've got to say, hey, look, we're all part of a big sporting family here. Let's all survive together and make a lot of money and provide a great piece of entertainment to the 2 million people in the area there. Because, like I said before, I can't think of a team in Australia that can draw off that many people.
Fair call. And then it brings to mind with me with the NRL sides, like they've got 4 teams in Western Sydney. They've got Parramatta, the Bulldogs, the Tigers and the Panthers. Really, the only one at the moment that's getting good support is the Bulldogs. The rest of them really aren't performing. Perhaps as
have they flooded that area?
Perhaps.
Maybe they need to,
and maybe they need to realise what's going on there with the football and with the AFL, and get the crowds back to the NRL games as well. Look, we've got to leave it there. We'll go to a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the rest of the AFL round and talk some NEAFL. Stay with us.
Life is for living, so live it. Life is for giving, so give it. Giving blood is cool, needing it isn't. Red Cross. Give a little. Life is for living. Life is for giving. Help save lives. Please give blood.
It's been a tough year. Are you ready for a major weather event? 2/3 of Queenslanders do not have an emergency kit. Hardenup.org gives you access to 150 years of severe weather history and dozens of practical tips to protect your home, family and pets. When extreme weather hits, we have to be ready. Be aware, be prepared and help others. Visit hardenup.org and start your plan today.
Hi, Daryl here for Coast Care. Thousands of Australians are working in Coast Care groups to protect our environment, taking action to protect and rehabilitate their local headlands, estuaries and dunes, and keeping waterways clear of garbage. If you'd like to be part of the solution, call Coast Care on 1800 803 772. That's 1800 803 772.
Having a party or barbecue at your house this Saturday night? Make sure you tune in to Saturday Night Party Mix from 7 p.m. on your station 101 FM. 101 FM Finance Update.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on the voice of Logan City, 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on a 101 FM. Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James and Darren Madigan all with you. It is now 18 minutes past 9. Your next fresh news update coming up at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock. We move forward now with the rest of the AFL Round 1 fixtures. The Gold Coast Suns, they're at home to St Kilda, 5:45 p.m. tonight at Metricon Stadium. Craig, what about the Suns? We just talked about the GWS and their progress. How about the Suns now going into their third full season?
Well, it's their litmus test, isn't it? They've got to find out where they're at. Like, they've been in the system that long enough. They've had enough players to get games under their belt. To be competitive is one thing, but to win games is where it's all about. And we don't expect them to go out of their way to beat the top sides. They can be competitive. That's really important. But they need to win the games they can win. Yeah. And that's the thing is, a lot of the times, I think we're sick now of the tag of, they're still young, they're still learning it, they went close, they've got to go. Yeah. Right, and even Guy McKenna's come out and said that. He's gone, this is where we're at now. There's no mollycoddling around it now. They've just got to come out and win the games they've got to win. And look, they've got a strong enough list. They've got to do it now because you'll probably see Campbell, Brown and a few others, probably maybe even a Warnock, probably think, well, I'm just about done. So that means young kids have got to come up. They're strong enough in their bodies. They've played enough AFL football now to sort of know what's to expect. They've really got to get it. This is they've actually got a good team to play it against because after coming down off their grand final, St Kilda against Collingwood a couple of years back, they haven't sort of reached the potential, I suppose, to what they can play at. So I think they're very, very vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And this would be a great opportunity. This is really the game that you'll find out where the Gold Coast are at.
Yeah.
Okay, they haven't gone up against the top side. They haven't played the GW bottom side or Port Adelaide. They're actually against the side that is there to be beaten. And I reckon that's really important.
Now at home as well, so they've got to prove it here. Melbourne Demons up against Port Adelaide Sunday afternoon, 1:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Demons struggled last year, so did Port. You and Darren, you both tipped Port Adelaide to finish at the bottom of the ladder this year. Who's going to get the cookies in this one?
Well, obviously I'm a Melbourne supporter, but not a strong Melbourne supporter. But you'd have to think at this stage. Well, my heart's probably broken.
A weak Melbourne supporter.
But look, Port haven't done anything to really tell me they're going to be anything different to what we've actually predicted. Melbourne, on the other hand, look, they've looked into it. They've recruited heavily. They've really worked on their development base. Once again, as we spoke, Darren, about Richmond, about Koch and Delidio, they're stepping up. We've got to get some of these blokes in the Melbourne Football Club now to step up and smell the roses, Jack Watson and alike, to see if they, can match it. Great to see Jack Viney playing his first game under the father's son. Look, Todd obviously is a recruiting officer there, which helps, but I think he's done it by himself, and that's the most important thing. He's a really exciting young kid. These sort of kids have got to be up front and going straight from the start, but they've got to get support from their older players to get them through. But I still suggest Melbourne to be too strong.
Fair enough. We've got to scoot through the other couple before we move on to the NEAFL. The North Melbourne side up against Collingwood, 3:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Etihad Stadium on Sunday. Darren, who do we like in this one? Both sides looking pretty strong this year.
Yeah, I'm liking both. So I'm just looking at their expected makeups at the moment and the matchups, and it looks pretty good, especially up the spine. But I think at the moment it's still pretty hard to go against Collingwood at the moment, so they'll be my tip for this week.
Fair enough. We got the Hawthorn Hawks up against Geelong Monday afternoon at the MCG. Big crowd for this one, I'm sure. 2:20 p.m. Darren, who do you like in this game as well?
Well, still the two clubs that I think are responsible for the greatest grand final that I've ever seen in my lifetime. And, they've been great rivals ever since, really. And, look, it's a tough one. I think the Hawks are a bit of a hoodoo at the moment, but I think Geelong will get up and win this one.
Fair enough. Craig?
Yeah, I think Geelong probably haven't developed their kids strong enough yet, and Hawthorn, I think they'll be bleeding a little bit from last year, so I think they'll win the game.
Fair enough. That wraps up the AFL first round. The rest of it, it's exciting to have the AFL footy back. It's also exciting to have the NEAFL back. Round 2 gets underway this weekend. It's 22 minutes past 9 here on SportzScene. Time to talk some NEAFL. Mate, first of all, Labrador up against Queensland, 1 p.m. at Cook Murphy Oval. First of all, this is a cross-conference game. Explain to us exactly what's going on here.
What it is, the NEAFL is the Northeastern Australian Football League, and we have a Northern Division and a Eastern Division. Queanbeyan are in the Eastern Division, obviously Labrador in the Northern Division. And what they do during the course of the year, for premiership points, they'll play two sides, one at home, one away, as a crossover game between the two states, which is, obviously is exciting for us, to get a bit of travel, play against different sides, and find out where we're at. But it's a good concept in the way that, like you do play in different conditions. Obviously, times down in Canberra are pretty cold. You come up here and you might end up playing NT the next week in the heat. So, you just become accustomed to it. But the exposure is really good. Just like I said, it's a cross-conference.
What's the standard like between the two conferences? Is there...
Yeah, look, there's not much in it. Obviously, the Canberra sides are very strong, very well financed. There's a few Sydney sides in the competition as well, which obviously we've probably got the wood on them because we've beat them pretty significantly in our in a state match, I suppose. But at the end of the day, you don't take any of the sides for granted.
For sure. Labrador versus Queanbeyan, mate. Who do you like?
Well, Queanbeyan won the grand final in the Eastern Conference last year and beat the Sydney Swans, so that's quite significant. So at this stage, I'd probably go for Queanbeyan and Battle of the Tigers, both wearing the Richmond outfit. It could be a draw, Darren. Have a great weekend for the Tigers.
They did that well, didn't they? Playing the two Tiger sides up against one another. It's interesting to see what the clash strip looks like.
Yeah. All right, the next game of the round. Aspley up against the Northern Territory Thunder, Graham Road, 1:30pm this afternoon. The Thunder had an upset loss last week, a narrow loss. They went down by 2 points at home. Can they bounce back this week on the road?
NT, a very good side. They travel all right, so that's not a problem with them because they're doing it quite frequently. Aspley, though, they're a good side. We played well last week, and so did Aspley for that matter. Either side could have won. They've got the strike power to win a lot of games, and I can see Aspley being quite significant. So it's going to be a great hit out. NT have sort of lost a few players from last year's grand final side, so I would probably favour Aspley in this one.
Yep, fair enough. Morningside up against the Brisbane Lions, 1:30pm at Esplanade Oval. Brisbane Lions, first game for them this season after the bye last week.
Yeah, they're running out with 17 listed players, so that's going to be quite significant against Morningside. They're a young side, Morningside. When the Brisbane Lions are full tilt, they're hard to beat at any time. Reigning premiers. It's just a matter of see how they go, but I think they'll be too strong for Morningside.
Fair enough. The Gold Coast Suns also playing their first game of the season after the bye last week. They're up against Mount Gravatt, 3pm at Metricon Stadium.
Once again, the Suns have got 15 listed players. For the people who don't know out there, they're only allowed to play a certain amount of players. I think they can play 18 players, but they can only have 14 on the bench, I think, at any given time, on the ground at any given time, or 16 on the ground at any given time, sorry. So at the end of the day, it makes it pretty difficult for the opposition if they've got a full side, the AFL sides. But in saying that, the Suns have still got a lot of young players in their group. Mount Gravatt probably a bit decimated through players from last year's side, so I think the Suns will be too strong with their fitness.
Fair enough. And final match of the round, mate, your Southport Tigers up against Redlands.
Southport Tigers, hang on.
Do I say Southport Tigers? I'm mixing them up.
It's Tigers.
Southport Sharks. Tigers in the head. There's too many Tigers happening. We're talking West Tigers, we're talking Labrador, Queanbeyan and Richmond. It's Tigers on the mind this morning at SportzScene. But the Southport Sharks up against Redlands at home Sunday afternoon, 1:30pm, Funkhauser Reserve.
Well, the last time we played Redlands was in a qualifying final last year, and we won on the last kick of the day, so we never take them lightly anymore, and not that we have in previous games, but we're hoping they will win. Our list is still reasonably strong. We've made a few changes, but we're not, this will be a very close game.
Fair enough. Look, Broadbeach have the bye this week in round 2. Quick look at results from round 1 from you guys. Southport Tigers, of course.
There we go again.
See, it's stuck in it.
We're from Tigerland.
Southport Sharks. We'll start with you guys last week. 5-point win over Aspley. What was the performance like from your guys?
Yeah, look, as you can understand, in a first round game, it's always pretty scrappy. But there was some quality football. Aspley got some really good football. Shani Stiller, who's retired from the Lions, has come back and played from. They've recruited some South Australian footballers, and under John Blair, I reckon they'll be really significant. It was a tough game, and we did really well, and we're quite happy to get away with a win.
Fair enough. A look at the rest of the round. Morningside getting up over Labrador 93-69. Broadbeach getting up over the Thunder 104-102 over at Teo Stadium. Redlands getting up 111-88 over Mount Gravatt. Any of those results catch your eye, Craig?
Well, look, obviously, not only the win by Broadbeach over the Thunder, but the significance of, I don't think the Thunder have ever been beaten at TIO Stadium, which is a bit of a graveyard for most teams. So to win there, apart from NT being a little bit skinny in their personnel, it was a great win by Broadbeach, and the strength of Broadbeach might be seen in that.
Exactly right. It's a great win for them there. We'll take a break now. That wraps up all the AFL discussion for this week. We'll be back with the same next week as well. But we've got to get Lee Hanneschek on the phone to talk some motorsport. We got some juicy F1 stuff to go through today. Plenty happened in that dramatic Malaysian Grand Prix last week. So stay with us here on SportzScene.
Do you have a street light that's not functioning correctly outside your property? Perhaps you've noticed a floodlight over a zebra crossing that's not operating. Well, Energex would like you to report it to them by calling 13 12 53 or completing an online form for faulty streetlights on their website at energex.com.au. Remember also that the council has to pay the running cost of all the streetlights, whether they're working or not. So let's get the most for our rateable dollar by reporting the streetlights not functioning to Energex on 13 12 53 or on their website energex.com.au.
Four-wheel driving on Fraser Island can be dangerous. Take sand driving seriously. Don't let your trip turn to tragedy. Slow down, stick to the speed limit. In good conditions, 80 kilometres an hour on the beach and 30 on inland tracks. Slower is safer. Seatbelts save lives. Wear them. It's the law. Police patrol the beach anytime. Make your visit to Fraser fun, not fatal.
If you want to know what's happening on the roads, make sure you tune into 101 FM Monday to Friday during Breakfast and Drive for the latest traffic updates presented by your station sponsor, Yellow Cabs.
Four-wheel driving on Fraser Island can be dangerous. Take sand driving seriously. Don't let your trip turn to tragedy. Slow down. Stick to the speed limit. In good conditions, 80 kilometres an hour on the beach and 30 on inland tracks. Slower is safer. Seatbelts save lives. Wear them. It's the law. Police patrol the beach anytime. Make your visit to Fraser fun, not fatal.
How to be a better driver in just 3 easy steps. 1. Give cyclists plenty of room. 2. Check for cyclists. 3. Give way to cyclists. And how to be a better cyclist in just 1 easy step? Just follow the road rules. It takes 2 to tango, you know.
Honey, look at the camera.
When Dave's wife died in childbirth, he lost his love. Crippled by depression, he lost his job, his home, and almost lost his kids. But the Salvos helped Dave get back on his feet. I'm Winton, and I'm a Salvos officer. Your donation to the Red Shield Appeal can help thousands of families like Dave's. Donate now at 13Salvos or salvationarmy.org.au. Today, Dave thanks God for the Salvos, but we thank God for you.
We play the biggest hits and the greatest memories. Logan City's 101 FM.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on 101 FM.
Yes, welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James, Darren Madigan, all with you. And joining us on the line to talk motorsport. There's plenty to talk about this week. Mr. Lee Hanneschek. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kev. Great to be with you.
Great to have you as always, mate. We'll jump straight into it. The Malaysian Grand Prix last week. Sebastian Vettel took it out. Mark Webber second. Lewis Hamilton third. Nico Rosberg fourth. They're the only four drivers we're going to talk about, but there's a lot to talk about with it. Lots have been said about the team orders and with Vettel and Mark Webber. Just lay it out for us exactly what went down at the end of that Grand Prix last week.
In a nutshell, Mark Webber leads going to the final pit stop. His teammate Sebastian Vettel is a few seconds behind him. Webber comes out in front. The team orders are basically, Webber, turn your engines down a little bit, save the engines, make sure you don't put them under undue stress, and make sure you save them for the next race. So he does so. Sebastian Vettel knows his deal. Sebastian Vettel goes to pass Mark Webber and goes on and takes the win against team orders. Full stop.
That's it. So, explain to me exactly. This is not for people looking from the outside looking in onto the F1. They say, "Well, he's just racing to win the thing." It's not like that, is it? He's taken advantage of a situation, an unfair advantage in a lot of ways, hasn't he?
Yeah, effectively, man. F1 is a very weird type of motorsport in that sense. Is that most times when you look at any other form of motorsport, it's race to win, and that's what motorsport's all about. But in F1, because they're on such a fine limit, they will sometimes save fuel or put more fuel in the engine to try and save the engine. Take revs out of the engine for short shifts, so to make sure they don't put the engine under undue stress. And that's basically what they were trying to do. Now, first and second was along those lines, and Vettel, he took advantage of Webber and, much to the displeasure of Webber, and understandably so, because he had the pace to win the race. But he was obeying the team orders to, keep it calm a little bit and bring it home. Now, at the other end of the scale, we had third and fourth with Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. Rosberg was faster than Hamilton in the final stages. He wanted to pass him. The team said no. The reason was that Hamilton was obeying team orders and matching the times they wanted him to do to make sure that he got to the finish. It was a great result for that team, third and fourth. And Lewis Hamilton And I'm a big Hamilton fan, and I was even bigger on the weekend when he basically stood on the podium and said, I don't deserve to be here. Nico Rosberg was faster than me today. However, this is the way that panned out, and we both obeyed team orders. That's basically simple how that rolled out. So, it's created a lot of controversy, even for those outside of the motorsport circles. I was with some friends last night, and one of the guys had a Mark Webber hat on. And do you think he didn't get paid out about having a Mark Webber and finishing second and all sorts of things? It was quite funny, actually.
Ethan, you've got a question.
Yeah, so Lee, what happens to Vettel now? I mean, we've seen players in the Australian cricket team sort of stood down for not doing their homework. Is there any sort of punishment heading his way or disciplinary action or anything along those lines?
Sebastian is somewhat of a golden boy in terms of the Red Bull team. So that's one of the things Mark Webber has said is that, nothing will probably happen to him because he's the golden boy. If you've got to look at, they're talking millions of dollars here every time they hit the track. Sebastian, yes, there should be something happen. I've got no doubt he's disobeyed team orders, and how are you supposed to work with a driver who doesn't want to work with the team? There should be some sort of sanction, but will there be? I doubt it. Webber's not the favourite of the month in terms of Red Bull, whereas Sebastian Vettel, he can't do anything wrong. Yeah. I would hope that something does happen, because otherwise, very, very messy situation.
Yeah. Darren, I know you're simmering over there. We'll get to you in a second, but Craig, we've got another question before we get to you, Darren. Hang on, you'll get a say.
Yeah, don't worry, I know you'll load up. I'm going to be very quick on this. I just want to know, basically, Lee, how does this affect Webber/Vettel? Like, does this put Webber in a much better light to the average person watching it, and does it actually hurt Vettel? Like, as you said, he was the golden child. Does he sort of go back to the bit of the devil now, or the bloke who just is not as popular because what he's done? Because they've made it quite public that what has happened here is against the book. So does it help Webber, or does it hurt Vettel?
I think depends on who you're a fan of.
Yeah, right.
I think really, if you're a fan of Vettel, well, he's out there for the win. He's done what it needs to take the win. If you're a fan of Mark Webber, well, he's an absolute you-know-what.
Yeah.
But if you're a fan of Red Bull, well, they still finished 1-2.
Yeah, true.
So, it's just one of the messiest situations you'll know in motorsport. The biggest problem is that team orders, a lot of money gets bet on these races. So I would be absolutely spewing if I had 100 on Webber to win, and Vettel comes out and wins because of his disobeyed team orders.
Yeah, look,
it's not match fixing, but it's the closest thing without fixing the matches.
Yeah, look, it was a fascinating end to that race. I caught probably the last 20 laps of it. I was, really fixated on it. Darren, I'm going to let you loose now on it. How did you view it? Both, not just the Red Bull situation, but the Mercedes situation as well.
Well, first of all, the Mercedes situation was one of the most disgusting things I've seen in sport. It was public. Everybody could see what was happening. The radio, everybody could hear it. Basically, I think Nico Rosberg needs to form a club with Rubens Barrichello and Eddie Irvine, and they'll all be able to have their monthly meetings and know exactly how they all feel. Look, Rosberg should have been allowed to pass Hamilton, and I have no doubt that Hamilton would have let him go because he was severely in trouble by the sounds of things in terms of fuel. Rosberg had a good argument. He wanted to go after the two Red Bull cars, but Brawn quite publicly said, no, I want to bring both cars home, implying that him and Hamilton would have ended up fighting, which I think is silly, and maybe fighting with Webber and Vettel later on with 10 laps to go. As far as the Red Bull thing is concerned, once again, Vettel did something that is the biggest cardinal sin in sport, and the word starts with C, and I won't go any because it's actionable. But the thing that really gets me angry about it is that would have known what was going on. He took advantage of the situation. He knows, being 1 and 2 from a Constructors' Championship point of view, there isn't going to be any action taken against Vettel because no matter how they finished, it was going to be 1 and 2 Red Bull, unless something bad happened to the cars on the way back. So as far as the Constructors' Championship concerned, and that's the team championship, and that's where they make their money, in prize money at the end of the year, Christian would have sat back and would have said, well, I'm not happy about what's happened. I've still got my drivers coming home 1 and 2, and that means the team is going to be further ahead in the Constructors' Championship. And really, that's what it comes down to. As far as people jumping up and down about team orders, get over it. This is a sport. It's like ever since someone sat behind the wheel of a car and raced. I mean, that's what goes on. It's no different to a coach or a captain telling anybody else in a team sport what to do in their team. Formula One is a team sport. I'll say it again. And it's measured by the actions of the individuals in the car, but not only that, by the guys back in pit lane as well. So people need to come to realise that.
Yeah, you're not wrong, mate. Look, we've got a message come in from Shelby. Thanks for the message, Shelby. She says both drivers were given multi-code 21, which means engines down, hold position. Race car radio voice said, this is silly, we'll address drivers afterwards, or whatever. Why didn't the team try to address these positions? Vettel ignored team orders and team positions. What do we say to that?
For the reason that I just outlined, championship points are measured by what happens with the constructors.
No, the other thing in there also is
having the two of them having a blue.
A team actually can't direct.
Come home.
Hold on, guys.
And let the other one pass.
Hold on. We're both talking at the same time. Look, hang on. Lee, we'll go you first, and then Darren for the rebuttal.
Basically, if you under the CIK's FIA, regulations, it's basically a case of you can't actually tell a driver to slow down and let someone else pass. That was the issue we had with Ferrari a few years ago. So you can't actually tell them, we'll slow down, let him pass, because that's actually fixing the race. Whereas the way in which they did it previously, where he was already in front of him and he's in whole position, that's okay. So that's where the situation comes into that one.
Fair enough. Darren, the rebuttal, thoughts?
Yeah, if they wanted to slow them down and change positions, they would have found a way. They always have, they always will. The point is, it was position 1 and 2 from a Constructors' Championship point of view. No matter what, they were going to finish 1 and 2. Let's not have them fighting in the last 10 laps over that position 1 and 2. That's what it comes down to.
Okay.
The millions of dollars at the end of the season for each championship point.
Well, the last question I want to ask you, Lee, on this topic before we move away from it is the situation with Vettel and Webber now. Is the relationship beyond repair with those two?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that short enough for you?
I think it's to the point. How do they deal with each other for the rest of this year then?
They don't. They simply go and tick the box. They smile for the cameras. They do the PR gigs they do. They come in separate cars. They just go along and do their own business. I don't think they'll work together very well at all.
They won't room share.
The smartest thing Christian Horner can do is, if he has any relationship whatsoever with Ron Dennis at all, is to go buy him dinner, sit down and have a talk about Croston Centre and find out how he handled the situation and just see if he can get some pointers, because as Lee points out, the relationship is effectively over.
Yeah.
Mark will do what the team tells him to do simply because he's a professional race car driver. Vettel's a little brat, and he proved it on the weekend.
Well, I thought some of the fascinating stuff on that race at the end of it was the post-race when you saw the two of them come together, and it really looked like Mark Webber was at the end of his rope with it, and he just fed up with dealing with it all together. But look, we'll leave that one there. I'm sure we'll hear more about it in the future. Darren, there's one more thing we wanted to talk about with motorsport before we moved away.
Yeah, well, I've got a bit going here. The other thing too is NASCAR on the weekend, Auto Club 400. Kyle Busch won the race from Dale Earnhardt Jr., who now leads the championship. Marcus Ambrose finished 23rd. That is also where he sits in the championship standings. With quite a few laps to go, there was a restart, and Joey Logano, quite rightly racing for the lead, blocked Tony Stewart. Now, Logano blew it in the last lap and made a hodgepodge with Denny Hamlin, ended up sending Denny Hamlin to hospital, but that's a separate incident. The incident with Tony Stewart was motor racing, and Tony Stewart just went on like an idiot. And I know you're a mate of his, Lee, but fair dinkum. I don't care if he kisses babies off the track. I mean, what he did after the race was really silly, and the guy has history. And really, to go on the way he did about a proper move at a restart, I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I'm going the complete opposite there. No problems with Joey Logano blocking on that restart, but he moves once, no problem, and he moves again. Pushes the driver down lower, and he moves again and pushes him down lower. Basically, when you're doing 200 miles an hour, You move once, no problem. If you went straight down to the bottom and effectively blocked Stewart from right on the white line from the minute he started to move a car, that's fine. But when you make 2 or 3 moves as the other driver's sort of behind you, that's when it becomes an issue. And that's what I believe Tony Stewart had an issue with. And it's not the first, not the second, not the third, not the 4th time that Hamlin that Joey Logano has tried to do that to another driver. And then you see him go and make a silly move on Hamlin, which sends him into the wall and ends him up with a broken back and out for 6 weeks. So I think Tony Stewart is a very hot-headed driver, but I'm looking forward to seeing the race next week to see when they go back on track. As Carl Edwards said after the race, that is racing. That was great racing. You had some great racing all throughout the day. There was cars passing from the front to the back. NASCAR to me is pure racing these days.
Yeah, I agree with you about the end incident. It was Joey Logano's fault. He slipped up a bit too far and he's ended up putting Denny Hamlin in hospital with an L1 fracture, but which will put him out for at least 6 weeks, but probably for the rest of the season. But I watched the race twice and I've seen the actual incident multiple times. I only saw one single move from Logano. And the other thing that worries me about what's happened, and I've been noticing at all races this year, they're racing on the apron a lot more than they used to. Now, there's no rule in NASCAR that says you can't race on the apron, but really the apron is there to provide a safe region for you to come in and out of the pits. And I'm just starting to think maybe it's time for NASCAR to say that bottom white line is your limit, no more racing on the apron, because I believe that a lot of that, we've had a lot of incidents towards the end of races this year already where cars have come down off the apron and come back up into the racing group and cause accidents.
Look, guys, we've run out of time now. I was looking forward to that motorsport segment and it did not disappoint. Lots of good fun chat there. Lee, thank you very much for being on the phone with us this week.
Thanks, guys.
No worries, mate. Have a good one. We'll see you around next time. We've got to go to a break now. When we come back, we've got a bit of netball to talk and a little bit of Super Rugby. So stay with us here on SportzScene.
Hi, this is Eric Banner, patron of the Australian Childhood Foundation. There were over 300,000 reports of children being abused in Australia last year alone. It's a problem we have to face up to. Child abusers are counting on you to do nothing. But there is something you can do. By going to stopchildabusenow.com.au, you can find out how we can help protect our children. So please, stop doing nothing.
Veterans, their partners and war widows may be eligible to receive assistance from the Department of Veteran Affairs for one-on-one exercise conditioning and or rehabilitation programs with a doctor's referral to an exercise physiologist. Veterans who hold gold or white DVA pension cards and who reside in the Logan City area are encouraged to telephone Rebecca on 0437 542 095 for more information.
It's been a tough year. Are you ready for a major weather event? 2/3 of Queenslanders do not have an emergency kit. Hardenup.org gives you access to 150 years of severe weather history and dozens of practical tips to protect your home, family and pets. When extreme weather hits, we have to be ready. Be aware, be prepared and help others. Visit hardenup.org and start your plan today.
We play the biggest hits and the greatest memories.
Logan City's 101 FM.
You're listening to Saturday Sports Scene on your station 101 FM.
Welcome back to Sports Scene here on 101 FM. It's Kevin Braysher, Craig Crowley, Ethan James and Darren Madigan, all with you through to the end of the show. 12 minutes to 10. Glenn Richardson's coming up next and there's a fresh news update at the top of the hour. So stay with us for all through the day here on 101 FM. Darren, it's time now to go through the ANZ Championship. We're into the second round. How did the first round all pan out for everybody? How's it all shaping up early on?
Yeah, it was interesting. I think we got 3 out of 5 of our tips there came through for us, and a great win for the Firebirds as well first up. So wasn't a bad weekend. Firebirds 68 got up over the Southern Steel 59. Adelaide Thunderbirds won by 7 goals over the Central Pulse. Canterbury Tactics went down as we expected in a not very pretty scoreline, 69-46 of the Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic. Melbourne Vixens 60 to the Northern Mystics 46, and the New South Wales Swifts got up over the West Coast Fever 55-41. This weekend, today, we've got the Canterbury Tactics at home at Canterbury Arena to the Southern Steel. I'm tipping the Southern Steel to win that one. The Melbourne Vixens tomorrow around 12:10. So what have we got? I think this weekend's the last weekend of daylight saving, isn't it? So that'll be 11:10 our time. So we're looking at the Melbourne Vixens playing the Adelaide Thunderbirds. I've got to fess up. This is almost a flip of the coin, but I am going for the Vixens at home. West Coast Fever, 11:10. Their time. They'll be playing the Northern Mystics. I'm tipping them to beat them over there at Challenge Stadium. And the Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic that evening will play the New South Wales Swifts over there in New Zealand. Once again, I think they'll comfortably beat the Swifts. And on Monday night, we have the Central Pulse in New Zealand playing the Firebirds, and I think the Firebirds will come away with the chocolates on that one.
Beautiful. What did you make of the performance of the Firebirds in round one?
They were very good. My great worry with them was the mid-court, and the mid-court ended up coming up fairly well trumps. I mean, you tend not to worry about the bookends with the Firebirds because they've got champion players at either end of the court.
Yeah.
So you're not overly worried about how they're going to perform. But with the retirements that have happened in recent years and players leaving basically to go to Victoria, which has been, I think we lost 3 to Victoria, something like that, if memory serves. So the mid-court has always been a worry. But look, they came up trumps and they played really, really well. And, to have the win that they had first up, especially given the year they had last year, you got to hand it to them. They did a great job. So that's the reason I'm tipping them against the Central Pulse. Once they got that mid-court sorted out, I think they can be called a balanced team then.
Terrific. How about the state leagues, mate? How's that all coming this week?
Yeah, as far as the State League is concerned, they played their games during the week, and unfortunately, Netball Queensland haven't bothered to send us any scorelines. My good mate Paula Stewart at the Golden South Jaguars said they had a great win over the Logan Wildcats on Thursday night. Brisbane West Lions played the Tigers, and Suncoast Lynx played the Cougars. Unfortunately, we don't have results from Netball Queensland through on those. There's a 2-week break. I can tell you now, our good mate Paula Stewart from the Golden South Jaguars has gone off to do her yearly helping session coaching with the PNG national side. So good luck to her with those guys, and hopefully everything goes well there. The current ladder at the moment, Tigers leading the comp from the Lynx, Kedron Wavell Services Club Cougars after that. The McDonald Steelcats from Townsville, unexpectedly, right up there in the 4, and they're doing really, really well. It's great to see, especially they don't have Joanne Morgan with them this year, who is a person who's a virtually legendary shooter here in Australian netball. Brisbane West Lions, Golden South Jags, the Elite Development Squad, which doesn't really matter because they can't make the finals anyway, and Logan Wildcats bring up the rear of the competition. We won't be seeing any more state league games until the 17th of April, Wednesday the 17th of April, when the Cougars will play the EDS, the Elite Development Squad, at Logan Metro, and then 3 days later, the rest of the teams will continue with the competition. So a couple of weeks break for the moment. There are the under 17 nationals and the under 19 nationals at the moment, and the Queensland girls are away for that, so we wish them luck.
That's the stuff. Thanks heaps for that, mate. We've got to move now on to the Super Rugby. We've got 8 minutes until the top of the hour. Glenn Richardson will take over, and we've got news at the top of the hour as well. The big news of the last week in the world of Super 15 Rugby, Curtly Beale has found himself in a spot of bother again, as he seems to have a habit of in recent months and years, Curtly Beale. What's happened here? The Rebels went down 64-7 at the hands of the Sharks, a real flogging there. Beale did not play, but they went out after the game, and allegedly Beale has been involved in a punch-up. He's allegedly punched the skipper of the side, Gareth Delve, and also had a brawl with Cooper Werner on the team bus. He's been sent home, he's been fined $40,000, and he has been stood down indefinitely. Look, what do you say about it? I mean, he's had a long line of incidents now. He's got to go to mediation in April about a brawl he had with a bouncer last year at a Brisbane nightclub. Look, it's a long line of indiscretions for him. The Rebels, I guess the thing for them now, the comparison's been made with Ben Barber and the alcohol problems. Is it the focus on fixing him up first and getting him to deal with his problems, or is it about letting him go and letting somebody else sort him out? What's the thought process for the clubs here?
Well, the talk is that get some tough love through their coach and send him off to the Waratahs. And I thought to myself, I heard that last night, and I thought, well, is moving him on and him individually, is it just move to another club? I don't think so. You've got to deal with the person and what he's doing at the moment. Whether the Rebels hold on to him and deal with it within their own backyard, or they send him away, is totally up to themselves, because you're still losing quite a good footballer. So last thing you want to do is, you have to, for this person's sake, you've got to try, and you have an obligation, to all your players to make sure they are, getting counselling, getting rehab,
all the support they need.
Exactly right. So, the question to be asked here is: do they go right? Let's get rid of him and just put the problem to someone else, or do we fix the problem and still keep good of a player and do due diligence in the way of getting this person to do what we need? And there's going to be a lot of discipline involved, and should be. And it's good to see that that he is being put through the ringer, not necessarily the lesser player.
Right.
Where that tends to happen quite a bit. Let the good player go. Let's act on the other, they both participated in the old occasion. So but they tend to say, oh, we'll leave this guy alone, or we'll slap him with this, but this guy actually gets flicked from the club.
Yeah, we saw that a couple of years ago at the Roosters when Todd Carney and Anthony Watts went out. Anthony Watts got the flick, Todd Carney was playing the next weekend. But look, I think the deeper issues with Kurtley Beale is the alcohol problems.
Yes.
Look, he's come out during the week and said he doesn't have an alcohol problem. Of course, none of us know Kurtley Beale, but it's pretty clear that he has problems when he's on the drink. He's been quite a few incidents at the moment. Darren, how do you settle this situation if you're the Melbourne Rebels? What approach do you take?
Yeah, well, belting the captain's not a good way to start, is it? Look, first of all, you've got to ascertain if there is a problem, because I think professional sport these days just does jump pretty quick on people, and sometimes that can be detrimental rather than helpful. If he does have a problem and he does have history, then it is up to his club to actually stand by him and try and get him through that counselling. Now, they can only do so much. I mean, as the old saying goes, you can only help someone who wants to be helped. And if he does the right thing and does the counselling and all that sort of stuff, assuming there is a problem that's identified, that's fine. I mean, let him do that and then get on with his career. The thing that worries me sometimes about these things is these things hang over a person's football career,
right?
And it's their livelihood.
Yeah, Darren, I'll stop there. These guys, and it's spoken to on many, many times about them being role models and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, the worst thing about it, every player should be a role model, but it is stemmed to the better players that become the role models because they are in the public's eye more often. This guy's got an obligation to the sport that he's being well looked after at. Now, he's got no reason to abuse it. Geez, I'm up on the soapbox, aren't I? But the fact of the matter is, he has an obligation to not only the sport but the public and the people who support him and his fans, that he has to come down from this and come down quickly, because it's not that he's missing out, it's not that he's his first year, and he's not that he's one of the lesser players. He's looked after significantly, he's been given chances. He's got to pull his head in, otherwise you should be making some stances on it, and that's what I think.
I agree.
I agree. I agree. I mean, and that's what I said. I mean, you've got to make sure identify the problem, make sure it's there, and then help him, and that's where the club comes in to stand by him. But once again, he's got to want to be helped too.
Also, as an employee of that club, he has a responsibility to that club as well, even beyond the role model and the rest of it. He's an employee of that club. He can't be behaving the way he did. On and off, he's a representative of that club, of the club's sponsors. He cannot be behaving like that on an away tour like that. The question I want to lead to now, if the Rebels, fix him up, or they don't fix him up, they flick him, whatever, would you want him, as other clubs, there's talk that NRL clubs could be circling him. Ethan, if you're the Dragons, would you chase Kurtley Beale?
Personally, I wouldn't chase Kurtley Beale. But, it depends on the club and the position that they're in, and there is, of course, a risk involved in terms of, whether or not he gets himself into similar trouble and all that sort of stuff. So there's a whole lot of grey area involved, and it's a tricky sort of situation for clubs to be in, whether or not they pick players up or not. But it's really, really, really too hard to say. It's hard to sort of comment.
It's a messy situation there, and the bottom line is Kurtley Beale needs to fix himself up. Like you say, Darren, that's got to come from him as much as anybody else.
And if he can be fixed, and you need a professional diagnosis on that too. I mean, if he can be fixed, I don't see any reason why another club wouldn't want to grab a guy like that. I mean, we saw someone. There are people in the past who've come back from these things brilliantly. I mean, for me, the greatest example is Wendell Saylor.
Of course, yeah, it's great.
You know, when Wendell Saylor came back, and we actually had him on the show after he came back to league, and he was playing for Burleigh as well as St George, and the guy was perfect. I mean, he did everything right after he came back, because he knew that he had blown it. He was a superstar. He had this massive standing in the game. Kids looked up to him, and he just plain blew it. And he hurt a lot of people in the process. But you know what? When he came back, he acknowledged it, he stood up for it, and he did everything right, and he helped people as well.
Exactly, and to this day, he's still been great. Look, we're out of time. If Curtly Bill really wants to get fixed, he should go to that rehab that Ben Barber went. 2 weeks, he'll be sweet. Thanks for the great show, guys. Craig, thanks for being here. Best of luck tomorrow afternoon. Ethan, I know you've got games to cover this weekend. Darren, thanks for being with us. I'm going to enjoy my weekend off with no covering football. It'll be good fun. I'm going to enjoy it. Everybody have a great Easter. We'll be back same time, same place next week.